House of the Dragon is a prequel show to the show of Game of Thrones, stars Paddy Considine, Matt Smith, Emma D'Arcy, Rhys Ifans, and many others to make a brilliant show, and is a show that takes place 300 before the events of Game of Thrones, 300 years before Daenerys Targaryen, and is the story of House Targaryen during this time, trying to find a successor for the next king or queen of the Seven Kingdoms. House of the Dragon has been my most anticipated thing for the year. I've been looking forward to it ever since they announced that the show was happening after the end of Game of Thrones. I'm a massive Game of Thrones fan, so naturally this show was going to be a very exciting thing for me, regardless if it was good or bad. So, with that being said, was the show any good? Let's find out in this review. What's going on, everybody? My name is Carson Kreitner, also known as Typical Moviegoer, and today we're talking about House of the Dragon. As stated in my intro, this takes place 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and let's just get started talking about this. Oh my god. Game of Thrones, I love it so much. Even with that ending, I still rewatch that show so many times. I mean, it has some of the, when it's great, it has some of the highest highs of the show.
I did not kill Joffrey, but I wish that I had. Watching your vicious bastard die gave me more relief than 1,000 lying whores.
And then it has the lowest lows of the show. But regardless of all that, it's truly a masterclass of a show. It's definitely the biggest show I think I've ever seen, at least set-wise, costume-wise. It's the most expensive. But naturally, I loved Game of Thrones, so naturally I was going to love House of the Dragon going into it. And I guess starting off with positives, the characters, they're just so rich. Specifically Rhaenyra, Viserys, Daemon, they're all so well done that even though some of them are characters you probably shouldn't root for, you want to, because they're just that charming and just that likable. Specifically, though, the biggest standout for this entire first season is Viserys, Paddy Considine as King Viserys. I mean, this man is just a broken man. He is deformed. He is mentally going insane because of this illness that he has. And you can tell he is just breaking. And it is one of the most depressing and saddest things I think Game of Thrones has actually ever done. In the entire Game of Thrones universe, Viserys is probably the saddest character. He's just a man who wants this family to be unite. He wants somebody to unite the realm. And because of the way he crowning Rhaenyra, not a lot of people agreeing with that, it's hard to unite the realm. And so honestly, when he dies, I actually cried. It is one of the saddest things ever within this whole show. Of course, his death, like Ned Stark's death, kicks off the entirety of Game of Thrones. And it kicks off this with House of the Dragon. Viserys is definitely the Ned Stark of this show. But there are obvious differences. Now, moving on, let's talk about story. It's incredible. It takes the small piece of Game of Thrones and is basically stretching it out, but they're doing it very wisely. You see, Game of Thrones had the White Walker stories. It had Bran's story. It had Tyrion and Dorne. It had Targaryen in Dorne. It had Jaime and Bronn going off to save Jaime's daughters. It has so many stories it juggles and then crams it into the finale to make one compact story. House of the Dragon, even though it's very complex, is simple. It knows what story it's trying to tell, and it wastes no time trying to get there. All it does within this first season specifically is build up the tension until we get to that 9th episode when everything is just unleashed. Aegon is crowned king. Rhaenyra is not going to be sitting on the Iron Throne, which starts to cause a war. It's exciting. It really is an exciting thing. I cannot wait for season 2 because of it. I really cannot wait to see where this story is going. It is masterclass story. And what's unique in the bigger challenges with this show is how do we take the story of Game of Thrones but make it so that it's original and it doesn't feel like Game of Thrones, yet it feels like Game of Thrones. I know that it's a lot of symbolism going back and forth, but there's no other way to explain it. And so the result is we get a story that is rich with character. We get a story that is a family drama. We get to see this house fall apart and then the break with Viserys' death. And it is very, very excellent. It is an amazing blast of a ride with some violence. Let's talk about that. The violence in this, oh my God. It's worse than Game of Thrones. Hold on. Let's see. Cut to one scene from Game of Thrones with violence. Perfect. Now let's cut to a scene from House of Dragon with violence.
Will have your tongue for that.
He can keep his tongue.
It is so violent. Oh my God. It is bloody. It is gruesome. It is incredible. And then the way they use the violence to tell the story, it's just so well done. And even though there is the worst of the violence in the entire Game of Thrones universe, it is very small. They use it sparingly to make a point and to get it across. Same with how much they use the dragons. Even though it's a show called House of the Dragon, they do use the dragons sparingly. They don't want to throw it all at once. And obviously that's also because of VFX and CGI. They don't want to make the dragon constantly. But they still use it sparingly, even more than they probably really have to. And so the result of violence, the characters, the story, all of it wrapping together to make a phenomenal banger of a first season. It's exciting, it's riveting, it's emotional. And I highly recommend this to anybody who, not even just a fan of Game of Thrones, but is a fan of television. It is really excellent. Another thing to note is the cinematography of this entire show. There are shots that just have my jaw dropped. It is excellent. Whoever came up with the shots, bravo. Probably will link you in the description, but it's genius. Pure genius. But I mean, again, I can't wait for season 2. This is going to be an amazing show, and I'm excited that season 1 was just so perfect. Was it better than season 1 of Game of Thrones? No. And I think my opinion might change as time goes on, because again, this is just so new, and that has been out for over 10 years. I'd have to think about it. Give me 5 years or so, and I'll answer again. But as of right now, not better than that first season of Game of Thrones, but it's still so perfect in its own right, and it is a great start to this universe, a great start to this story, and I am so excited for season 2. Anyway, guys, without further ado, if you guys did like this video, do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. This has been House of the Dragon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Typical Moviegoer, and this is me saying, peace out.